What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Black Belt Business Podcast. I'm your host, Eliot Marshall, and it is my goal with each episode of this podcast to share the stories, strategies, tactics, tools, and resources that will help you establish or grow your martial arts school. The Black Belt Business Podcast is brought to you by Easton Online. You can find all of our digital courses, martial arts curriculums, and resources designed to help you enhance your business at easton.online. So without further ado, let's jump into the episode. What up, everybody? How you guys doing?
Doing great, man.
Good.
How are you?
I'm good. We have some new guests. I don't think we've done an Easton Online podcast with you guys. Have we yet?
First one.
First one? All right, let's introduce ourselves. Fuck me. Everyone knows who I am. Derek, you go first.
I'm Derek. I've been an Easton GM since 2018, and I've been doing Easton Online for I think about 2 years now.
Yep. And you've done every job at the school, correct? Like you've not had any of the jobs, correct?
Yeah.
How'd you start?
I started cleaning the mats just in exchange for my membership. And then I was a Little Tigers assistant, worked up to a kids lead instructor, kids DH. Then I was an adult instructor, adult DH, and then worked the front desk. Was like the DFI for a while, and then became GM.
And you're the GM of the Castle Rock School.
Yeah, correct.
Yes. You're the owner of the Castle Rock School too. So you GM and own the Castle Rock School currently, yes?
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Kyle, how about you? Tell us so you can start your whole martial arts journey, like where you started, all that. Yeah.
And then So I've actually had a few different instructors, especially in the jiu-jitsu world. I actually started with a very short time, actually, Novo Uniao, only for 2 or 3 months before I got relocated out to New Mexico. I joined up with 10th Planet at the time and had a lot of really good experiences, but had started visiting Easton Training Center around late 2015, early 2016 when I come and visit Denver. Made some fun connections and kind of knew that's where I'd be when I landed in Denver. So I've been with Easton Training Center since 2017. Started doing a little bit of coaching toward the tail end of the pandemic when things started opening back up in 2020. I'm the department head for our Denver school, our Denver Academy. Started doing that in the summer of 2021, and really early 2023, I think January, February 2023, started working a little bit more with Easton Online.
And you guys, for Easton Online, Kyle, you and I kind of do the sales aspect, right? And so you're heavy in the sales and following up with leads and stuff like that. And you also run everyone through the launch program. Yes?
Yeah. Working a lot with new onboarding of members, some people who want to work with us. Yeah.
And Derek, you do the mastermind with me, consult some of our Accelerator Plus members, right? And also do a couple of launches as well, right?
Yeah, that's great.
Guys, let's start with launch, right? Let's start with launch. I only talk to these launch clients in the beginning, right? Like to sell them and to get them to one of you guys. So when you think about doing a launch with the school, and really we're not really launching any schools, right? Like I don't think we've had anybody that doesn't have a school yet and we're starting from the ground. We're really doing a relaunch. We're like launching them, I guess. We're helping people get to 100 members in hopefully inside 3 months. What do you see as the biggest obstacle? I'll go to you first, Kyle. What do you see as the biggest obstacle that these launch members have in, like, I don't know how else to say it other than just getting the fuck out of their own way, right? Like they just, that's probably the biggest thing. But what do you see the obstacle as?
Yeah, I think that's the perfect way to say it, is kind of getting out of your own way. I think we've demonstrated with Easton, between 8+ academies of our own, plus helping a lot of these other schools do it, we know that the product works. It's just, are you willing to work a little bit? I think sometimes maybe a school that's even been open 6 months, you've kind of gotten set in your style and in your way. And lot of the things that you should be doing, you're just not doing, whether that's being a little more active on reaching out or following up with potential leads. I think that with a newer academy, and I'm talking like even 1 year in, you have to understand that you haven't established a really great product yet. So you really have to kind of focus more on your marketing and a little bit more on who you are and what you stand for, instead of trying to run it like a 1,000-member school when you haven't really kind of settled into who you are yet, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's a good point. I bet you a lot, like most people that open schools come from an already most likely successful school in some way, and they think it's just going to be the same, right? And it's just not. Like we saw this, right? We had to close Easton Castle Rock, right, Derek? Yeah. And then we had to, change the name, a whole bunch of legal stuff. And no one, like, they didn't know it was run just like in Easton. There was this other name. You had like no credibility, wouldn't you say, when Matrix opened, Derek?
Yeah, I think I don't even think I understood like how big of an impact like the brand can have in marketing. And I think I had like the same thoughts where I was like, oh, this is just going to keep cruising like it did with the Easton name. Mm-hmm. But having to like re-break into a market and like get marketing back going, I think it takes more than you would expect.
I mean, it can look like Nike and smell like Nike and everything, but if it ain't Nike, people don't buy it, right? Like, yeah. Because people want to see that swoosh sign. They want to see, because they trust it. They know it. They know what it is. They know all of that. And I think, Kyle, that's a great point, that just people, if you came from a very successful school and you open your own, which is totally great, you get zero cred. There's no street cred on that, unless you're a world champion.
Sure.
Right? You probably get some cred if you're a world champion, but that's it. And that's not most people opening schools. Derek, go ahead, Kyle. What are you gonna say?
Yeah, I think that having that world champion title can definitely get some people in the door, but again, your product isn't there yet, because you have to figure out how to do it, put your spin on it, or replicate somebody else's. So I think there's a lot of important, things to think about even in that aspect.
Derek, how about for you the question of what do you see a newer school, right? Like people with under 100 members, what's their biggest problem?
I agree with Kyle. I also think there's this thing where starting out, you have a small budget, and it can feel like scary or nerve-wracking to put money into marketing because you feel like you've got all these other bills to pay. So then paying for growth seems really scary, but you can have the best product inside. And if you don't have a marketing budget going out, like there's no way to actually grow. So it's like risky for sure, but you've got to pay, like you've got to have a marketing budget or it can't go anywhere.
It's really crazy. I think that's one of the things people don't think about, right? Like they don't think about like a budget of what's called runway money. Like you get the school open, you buy the mats, you lease the space, you pay your first month of rent, like you're ready to go. You got no money and you're like, fuck yeah, we're good. We made it. I remember this happened. This is Derek, do you remember Steve Lieberman?
Yeah.
Okay. So Steve Lieberman used to help Amal when Amal was running the school with his finances. And then when I came on, he would, it was the three of us, we would talk about like he did the financials. And we get Denver open, right? This is 2012, June of 2012, maybe May. Yeah. Now like the 5th day of June, probably. We get Denver open. We pay all the staff, rent's paid, everything. And we got $5,000 left in the bank, $5,000, right? Steve calls me. He's like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm about to go teach, Steve. I'm in Denver. He goes, kick everyone out and close the doors, lock it up. And I'm like, why? He goes, there's no way you guys are going to make it. If you and Amal don't each have $25,000 for some fuck money this month, then there's no way you're going to make it. I was like, Steve, I don't got $25,000, bro. I just put every penny I had into this school, So we're going to have to figure out how to make it. And look, we made it, obviously. But his point was shit comes up, like shit comes up. It's a little different for our situation because we bill every day, right, with Easton. So there's if you have 500 members, 20 of them are going to pay that day, right? So it's not just like lump sum, but yeah, you need to have, if you have 0 members, if you have 10 members, you don't that's not happening, right? Like you didn't have the luxury of money coming in every day. But that's why you need to do the launch program, right? Because we help you get to the 100 quickly, very, very quickly, so that you're at minimum breaking even.
Yeah, getting into black, I think, is a big thing for sure, because it kind of takes the pressure off your neck a little bit, so you can start to get some people to help you out. And I think it can seem intimidating, like you've been stuck at 50 for 6 months, but that's only doubling your student base, right? It's not like you're having to fight tooth and nail for every person. That as you grow, the students help you grow, especially as you start to settle into who you are and who your academy is. The students can actually help do a lot of that for you, so that you're not scrambling day by day, as you grow.
Let's move away from launch a little bit, right? And just talk about an overall, because you guys work with a lot of clients and talk to a lot of clients. What is, to everyone, no matter how big your school is, where do you think people are messing up? Where do you think the biggest place Easton Online can help people when we're looking at the school? Derek, I'm going to go you first.
Yeah. I think almost everyone that starts a jiu-jitsu academy, it starts out because you love jiu-jitsu. Like, that's the thing that you want to do. And I think a lot of times it looks like you just, like, I think there's a false perception that you just are going to hang out and train with your buddies, and the school is going to magically grow because people are going to somehow see how awesome that is from the outside, and they're just going to show up. So one, I think, is like identifying that as an issue. The second piece of it, I think, is just bridging that gap from like just being a technician where you teach jiu-jitsu to also being like a manager and an entrepreneur. And that's what I think is super cool about Easton Online, is like helping people that truly love jiu-jitsu and want to spread jiu-jitsu actually be able to be successful in the business roles and as an entrepreneur. I think is super huge.
Kyle?
Yeah, I agree more or less 100%. I think the great thing about Easton Online is helping people understand, if you're a coach, you're in the martial arts industry. But when you're an academy owner, you're not in the fight game or the martial arts industry. You are in the people business, we tend to say, right? So understanding how to shift, like on the mats, that's the martial arts space. But everything else, which is probably 90% plus of it, that's the people space. And you have to just completely rethink your approach to what martial arts and business looks like.
Your black belt does not matter once you step off the mat. Like,
No doubt.
and I think what you see a lot too is people trying to hold that black belt over some of their maybe employees. They're like, I'm a black belt, so you have to listen. And that's true, right? Like, as the owner, yes. If I would like to state my opinion, I get to state my opinion, right? I get to do my thing, right? And I'm not saying that, but that doesn't mean my opinion's the only opinion, right? Like, when we're, I don't think we should take this approach on the mat either, that my opinion's the only opinion. But let's just say my opinion's most likely right when dealing with a student. Once you get off the mat, it's not. I'm not a black belt at maybe I am at some other things by now. But like, when you first open the school, right? You're not a black belt. Like, you are not a black belt at running the school. You are not a black belt at sales. You are not a black belt at marketing. You are not a black belt at any of these fucking things. And we have this crossover effect where it's like, but I have a black belt in jiu-jitsu, so then I'm gonna, like, I'm just this is how it goes. And it's just the wrong thing, right? Like, we have a marketing director, right? Phipps is our marketing director. I can discuss with Phipps. I can give Phipps my opinion. I've done a lot of marketing by now in my 20 some years but I'm not the fucking marketing director. At the end of the day, I got to default to Phipps. And I think this is one of the biggest things that we see with people, right? Is I'm a black belt. Derek, how do you deal with it when you're helping people?
I think asking really good questions is important. Like, I think anytime that someone's having a hard time, like seeing where they're actually at, I think that if you call that out, it just leads to people being defensive. But I think if you can ask good questions that lead people to realize, like, yeah, you might be the best black belt, you might be the best jujitsu coach, but like right now, like, where's your member count actually at? Like, how many people are you actually retaining? How many people are you actually signing up? Like, I think there's a lot of questions people don't even know to ask themselves about their academy. Um, and I think that if you can lead them through those questions and really let them know what they should be looking at, that it becomes so much easier for them to see it for themselves, which I think is way better than someone explaining it to them when they can actually see it.
Yeah, getting them to drink the water rather than you pouring the water down their throat, right? Like, because I'm super guilty of this sometimes, right? Like, I'm like, motherfucker, open your mouth. Open your goddamn mouth, right? And if they can see it, then it just the drinking goes way better than you pouring it for them. So, what are some of the questions you like to ask, Derek? Like when you first start working with somebody, right? Like, what are some of the things? And the reason we're talking about this is because as academy owners, you got to ask your employees questions too, because you don't want to ram it down their throat, right? Like, Kyle, you're a grown ass man. Derek, you're a grown ass man. You like being told what the fuck to do?
Hell no.
No. Like, that's part of working for somebody, sure. But you don't want it jammed down your throat. Do this. Fuck, man. Let me think a little too. So, Derek, what are some of the questions that you like to ask when you can take it from any approach? You can take it from you as GM, Derek, to employees, or you as, consultant Derek to other owners. However you want, whatever way you want to answer that question.
Yeah. I think for starting out consulting, asking like what CRM people are on, what systems they're using, because I think that's something we see a lot starting out is people don't know what CRM to use. And you kind of have to pick one and commit, I think, a little bit, because by and large, all of them suck. But
they have all the STDs. Yeah. One of them has an STD. Every single one of the CRMs has an STD. So you're getting one.
Yeah. But it's still better to be like focused on one and everyone knows where to find information than being split between 2 or 3 because you didn't really know which one to pick. So I think even that is an indicator of how organized people are, how much their staff is going to be able to find the information they need. And then it's a good indicator of like what things they're actually tracking. Because if you're on
everything in one place is what you're saying.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Like all of the academy information on the member facing side, money facing side, all of that in one spot.
Yeah.
Yeah, we see that a lot, right? Like people have like spreadsheet for this and a CRM that they kind of use for this, and they take money through Square or Venmo, right? And you're like, yo, like you can't know how you're doing.
Yeah. If you can't measure it, you can't manage it. And when it's so spread out like that, either most often you're not measuring it, or it's taking so long to measure it that by the time you have all the information, it's hard to act on.
Right. Kyle, how about you? Go ahead, Derek. Sorry, you weren't there. Go ahead.
Oh, no worries. I was just going to say, as like a GM to employees, I think one of the most important questions to ask is like why they're there. I think if they're there because they're genuinely interested in helping other people, I think that's what we're looking for. I think when the instructor or the employee is there mostly for themselves and they see class as like they're there to do their training, not to help other people, I think that runs into a bunch of issues, and it's hard to manage them. It's hard to keep them on a curriculum. because they can't see that they might not be teaching what they're interested in that moment or what's going to help them in that moment. But it's not about them. It's about the students.
Yeah, it's a tough one, especially, no, I was going to say at more advanced levels, but I'd say at all levels, because sometimes you get that beginner instructor that wants to show the student how good they are. And they don't care if they want you to make them good. So, Kyle, go ahead.
I want to touch on that in just a sec. Derek, I think, made a really good point on the technical sides of things. And if you can't see where you are, how are you going to get to where you're going, right? So having that snapshot, I think, is huge. But I love when you were saying, asking people, like, what are you here for? One thing I say a lot on and off the mats is, like, we need to be reminded more than we need to be taught, right? So core values is such a major part of what Easton Online does, is like, what do you stand for? And are these things leading you to that? Remind yourself constantly. So if you're on the mats just trying to show everyone how great you are, it's not going to translate to a better run business. I think that when you decide, who you are and where you're going, whether it's you, your staff, or even just the students, are you bringing in the people that you want to bring in that are aligning with where you want to go? If you try to just absorb anything, whether it's poaching or just grabbing someone off the street, man, you got to come try a class. It's the desperation is just, oozing off of you, where it's kind of clear that you don't know what your gym is there for and who you're helping. So I think the technical side is super important, because it's actually a report card of where your core values are standing and how you're doing on that. So if you're just in it because you don't want to work a 9-to-5 job, and look, I've been guilty of that too, where I'm like, hey, this just seems a lot easier, then you're kind of just fucking yourself in the end, because you're going to suffer and with your rose colored glasses on going, hey man, at least I don't have a real job, and I've been that guy. So I get where you're coming from, but man, like, what are you actually heading toward, and are you moving the needle, day by day?
Yeah. The moving of the needle. That's such an important thing. The needle's got to fucking move. Yeah. And it's got to move. And look, it's not always going to move in the right direction, right? Especially as you grow and get bigger. In the beginning, it better move in the fucking right direction, right? Because you're at 0, you're at 10. Okay, it's got to move in the right direction. You've got to be doing things, and look, those things are product, sales, culture, and marketing in the beginning, right? You have to know this. Like we harp so much on this: product, sales, culture, marketing, product, sales, culture, marketing. Like you see it in every I feel like I make the same video every day. I'm like, oh, another one about this, but it's what it is. We just talk about it in another way. Kyle, I want to touch on something you said when you were like, doesn't matter how good you are, as a jiu-jitsu practitioner. I made a video the other day that we put out that was like, man, my medals don't matter. I got a lot of fucking medals, right? I got a lot of them. That belt's fucking back there. That was fucking cool. That was a really cool night when all that shit, but nobody gives a rat's ass. No, the only way people can, in our school, can kind of start to think like, damn, my instructor was a badass, is if I'm good to them and start to make them badasses, and the school feels good to them and the employees, right? Like, that's the only way people start to care. Because if none of that stuff happens, they're like, that guy's just kind of an asshole that was good. Right. And they don't even, who cares? Yeah. Go ahead. What are you going to say, Kyle?
Yeah, I think it goes right back to, you got to be reminded more than you need to be taught. Mm-hmm. Same for the students. Like, remind them. Same for the staff. Remind them why we're doing this. And ultimately, if you feel like jiu-jitsu or Muay Thai or martial arts is going to help people, then at the end of the day, your journey is your journey, and you don't have to push it on anybody, because it's not going to help.
What are you going to say, Derek?
I think it's important to say that we're not recommending that you have some bullshit martial arts that you're teaching.
Oh yeah, 100%.
We're saying that it doesn't matter if you're good. It's like the day one person coming in, if they're trying multiple schools, they can't tell who's good or not. That's not how they're picking the school that they're going to stay at. That's going to be mostly about how you feel. How does your front desk make them feel when they walk in? Do you have an orientation so that they feel comfortable in the warm up? I think there's this concept kind of behind everything we do, which is how do you boil a frog, right? If you turn up the temperature too high, the frog just jumps away immediately. But if you slowly turn up the temperature, you can cook a frog in a pan without it ever even jumping. And that's what we want. Like, we want them to be badass. We want them to be tough. They should be savages on the mat, and really kind people when they leave it. But you have to do it in the right order. And at the beginning is not the time for like the best martial arts they've ever seen.
Right. Right. Yeah. And to clarify Derek's point, you can't suck at jiu-jitsu or Muay Thai. You can't suck. Like, yeah, I've said this a bunch. You can't suck. You can't be fat and out of shape. You can't be sloppy. It's not a good look. It doesn't work. Like, it doesn't, like, it's just not what it is. And now, obviously, look, the disclaimer here. First of all, we're talking about the teachers, right? We're not talking about the students. There's fat, out of shape people that come in all the time and get in shape and all that, right? Please come to the schools. But as an instructor, you got to be able to do the damn thing, right? You don't have to be a world champion. You don't have to have any of that, but you got to be able to perform the martial arts, right? Like, you have to be able to, barring any injuries, perform a berimbolo. You have to be able to do these things, right? Like, now, do I invert that much with two herniated discs and spinal stenosis down my neck? No, I try not to, but I can for sure fucking teach it, right? I know what we're doing. So that's very important, but that's not what grows the school in the beginning. You have to be able to help people that are fat and out of shape, that don't feel confident about themselves, that have some insecurity issues. You have to be able to help them. And if you can't help those people, because what Derek was saying, you're boiling the frog too fast. Is that what? Yeah, you're boiling the frog really, really fast. Then they leave, right? And then you get in this narrative in your head of, well, they just couldn't cut it. And that's just not true. Anna was one of these people. Anna was petrified of jiu-jitsu.
And started in kickboxing, yeah?
Started in kickboxing, and petrified to come over onto the mat. Petrified. And now probably one of our best competitors ever.
Yeah.
It's winning.
That's crazy. I didn't know that.
Yeah, she was
really good the whole time I knew her.
Yeah, you've only known her as good, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, I think she did kickboxing for 6 months. And I can remember she was dating Nick, right? And Nick was doing jiu-jitsu. And she would walk by the mat and look at the mat the whole time. She'd be walking this way and looking at the mat saying, I think I want to, Yeah. And if it went too hard, then if it was too difficult, then we wouldn't have, I wouldn't have such a great relationship with her. And, and she wouldn't have been able to build herself in the way she's been able to build herself in the world. So yeah, you can't do that. A lot of people do this, and they do this with shitty fundamentals curriculums. Let's just talk about that. The importance of an intro class and the fundamentals curriculum. I think most people think that intro class is to show people how to tap and kind of show them what jiu-jitsu is all about, and that's just not our approach. Derek, what's our approach with the intro class?
Yeah, our approach, we have everyone come in early. They work one-on-one with an intro instructor. And our main goal in that is to make them feel comfortable, especially with the things that are going to happen in the warm-up, so that there's no surprises. They feel really comfortable. They get a success early in class, where they can feel accomplished. That way, when we get the techniques and it's some uncertain ground that they're working through, they already have that success to hold on to, so it doesn't spook them. It doesn't scare them away. And that's taking our closing percentages way up than just throwing someone into a class. They don't know what's going on the whole time. And
that intro class is small group, right? It's 1 or 2 people with them, right? So that way they are not embarrassed in front of a whole class, right? You take down all of the embarrassment, right? They're going to be embarrassed a little bit, but everyone's okay being embarrassed with one person or two people. Sure. It's not the biggest deal in the world, right? And then when they go into that group class, they just did these moves, right? They just did this so they can do it. And then whatever happens in the middle, as long as it's not too difficult, right? As long as it's not the berimbolo, right? It's fine. They don't mind fucking it up a little bit. And then at the end of the class, there's this is a big one. There's no full live training, because that can then ruin a class for somebody, and then not sign up. So, go ahead, Kyle.
Yeah, so the intro class, man, like having an ambassador there, someone who represents, who you are and what you stand for, makes such a difference. Because just like you said, these students aren't going to know anything in class. Every single thing's going to be new to them, but at least they can do the warm up. At least they've got that part where they're like, all right, I didn't totally fuck this up. I did learn something today, even if the rest of it leaves my head. And I think it's a good way to approach it, is understanding, like, are you trying to make your students really tough, or are you trying to make them really great, on and off the mat? And I think having that fundamentals approach, that old school hard nose, kind of like, all right, well, here's an Americana, let's fight. That shit, you're going to keep the tough guys around until they're injured, and then they're gone too. So let's boil that frog a little bit slower. Let's make sure it's like, look, did you fall down without hitting your head? Hell yeah, we win today, man. Let's go. Tomorrow we're gonna stand up stronger. We're gonna get this move a little bit better, and you'll be bridging by tomorrow. It's incremental progress. It's very where someone can go home and say, I did this, instead of going home and saying, I didn't get hurt today. Maybe I can come back tomorrow. I'm getting better and not just tougher.
We get too, I think sometimes in those fundamentals classes, when we throw someone right in, we get too worried about them getting the jiu-jitsu move. Yeah. Like, we just get them to get the idea of moving, right? Like moving, right? Okay, you moved, okay? Because getting the jiu-jitsu move is going to be a minute, right? Jiu-jitsu's hard. Jiu-jitsu's really hard. Being able to get out from somebody that's on top of you, like mounted on you, it's not fucking easy. Right? It's just not easy. And it's even if you put a really strong guy, a young, strong, untrained 20-year-old, 25-year-old on top of me, it'd probably be a little bit of a struggle for a second, right? Like, that is just not easy. So to expect your students to actually get these moves in their first week, second week, it's just not happening. Can they move? Right? Can they do the fucking warm-up?
It's so big. I love that you said that, because like, not only are you highly skilled, you're a really big guy, right? Mm-hmm. And at this point, I talk to the fundamental students, especially when we're doing like back attack kind of stuff. It's like, look, man, I know my belt is black, but if you're on my back and you might not choke me, but man, it's not going to be easy for me to get away.
Right.
Like, this is hard. And honestly, I think that's why giving out the first stripe on a white belt is my favorite stripe, favorite belt to possibly give. Because I tell them every time, look them in the eyes and go, this shit is hard, and you're okay with that. And you want to challenge yourself, because it doesn't matter, man. Black belt versus white belt, man, if you're squeezing and like trying not to let me get out, yeah, man, I'm not going to have a good time probably, when you're giving it 100%.
Go ahead, Derek. Yeah, it's just
what I was going to say.
Oh, we were just talking about the importance of the fundamentals in intro class, right? Like, and how taking them through that in a way that they feel comfortable is another, like, you see people go into an all levels class all the time, for example, like, like, especially when a school is starting out, all they do is this all levels thing. And it's just, you can't do that. You can't, like, you gotta have that fundamentals intro level class. Go ahead, that part, Derek.
Yeah. I don't know what else to say. I just agree with Kyle. Like, I think that's the most important thing. Like, once you get through the intro, you get through that class and you feel comfortable, and
then you can move people along, right? Yeah. And then you can move people along, and then you can really start to establish the culture of taking care of beginners. Right. Yeah. Because that's one of the biggest things that I can remember in 2003. This all started for Easton in 2003, of this idea of taking care of the beginners, because that was not what we did pre-2003. Pre-2003, we fucked people up, right? We whooped their ass in the intro class, in the fundamentals class afterwards. The next day when they came back, we were like, we're going to see if you can handle this. Right? And Anna would have left. Right? But obviously, she can handle it. She just needed a little bit different pace in the beginning. Right? Yeah. So that's the key piece of this beginner level class. And we have brown belts and purple belts and blue belts come to our fundamentals class all the time.
Yeah.
And they know that it's about what?
New guy. New
person. Right? It's about the new person. Right? It is 100%. You are, I don't want to, we don't have any brown or purple belts that come to a fundamentals class and go, oh man, we didn't train today. We didn't go live.
I needed that win real bad.
You know? How do we, I think one of the biggest things that people get nervous and scared about is their students quitting because like these classes are too easy, right? There's no, what do we do to solve this problem? Kyle, you're the DH. Well,
yeah, man.
Hold on, Derek had something to say first. Go ahead,
Go
Derek.
for it.
Yeah. I think that comes from like the owner's point of view or the black belt point of view, where we feel like I've taught fundamentals and been like, man, this is so basic. But you have to remember, like, people on their first day that know literally nothing, that what seems so basic to us because we've been doing it over a decade is not second nature to them like it is to us. Like, that stuff's still challenging for them. I also think that it's important to talk about like the flip side of the coin that we talked about this, which is we don't want it to be the most interesting thing ever. Like, we want it to engage new people. We want it to be somewhat challenging for them, but they should hit a point where they also get bored there and they're ready to move up. Like, fundamentals should be a revolving door. New people should come in and then they should graduate out to intermediate. And some people are so worried about retaining people specifically in the fundamentals where they make the class so interesting, they keep upping the level. No one's ever ready to leave fundamentals because it's so interesting. We want them to get those skills. And specifically for us, it's the self-defense skills where they've been there for a while. They know how to get to a side clinch. They know how to keep themselves safe. But once they've got that, we don't want to keep making it more entertaining. We want to see those people go up to intermediate. We want them to start training live.
That's a great point. People start to, they adjust the class because the students are getting better. Yeah, kindergarten's kindergarten, dog, right? Like, kindergarten's kindergarten. You don't see third grade and kindergarten, like the shit you do in third grade. Like, kindergarten's kindergarten. You got to go to first grade. Right? After you get done kindergarten, you go to first grade. And after you get done first grade, you go to second grade. Left to our own devices, we would all still be in kindergarten. Sure. Teacher's real nice to you, gives you a hug, take naps every day, fucking snack.
No pressure.
Right? Like, no 5-year-old is choosing to go on to first grade.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah. Right? So that's a great point, Derek, is don't change your fundamentals class to make it more interesting. It's boring a little bit for a purpose. They got to leave, right? They got to leave and go on to second grade, intermediate. Go ahead, Kyle. What were you going to say?
Man, that was really well said, right? It's okay to be bored a little bit. If you want to get good at anything, it's going to be a little boring. I've told students one-on-one in front of a group, like, man, you want to learn how to play the piano? You're not playing Mozart day one. You got to play scales. And you got to play scales over and over, and it fucking sucks sometimes. Like, if I play the scale one more time, I'm done with piano. But that's making you better, whether you see it or not. I think it's okay to be just a little bit bored, right? Keep it fresh, keep it interesting, sweat, smile, learn. But everything is a challenge to somebody in that class. And if that person is starting to feel a little bored, they must be getting something. And I think the way that you start to challenge them is maybe they've got just a closed guard. They've got a great cross collar choke that they learn in fundamentals. It worked for them on their first try, and it keeps working. Cool, man. Can you sweep them? Like, well, if I sweep them, they'll pass my guard. Well, now we got something to work on, right? And we learned the sweep on that same lesson. Why don't you practice that? Or, hey, I know you can hold mount, but why don't you see if you can take the back from there without them escaping? So, yeah, man, this idea of being bored isn't as bad as a lot of academy owners, I think, make it out to be. It doesn't have to be exciting if you're trying to improve, on a grand level. Rising tide raises all ships.
All right, guys, as we close it up here, if you could give one piece of advice to, other than work with us, okay, right? Like, if you could give one, look, we know it helps. But when I'll sell in a second. I'll sell in the closing. If you could give one piece of advice to a struggling academy owner, what would it be? Kyle, you first.
It's not about you. I think I hope that a side effect is a successful business, but it's not about you. It's about what you're creating and what you stand for and bringing the people there. So get very clear on who you are and why your gym exists, and find the right people to help you create that.
Derek.
Start tracking things. I think as people start out, they start doing it by feeling. And I think that's a bad place to make decisions from. So if you start measuring some key indicators that you can actually trust, it just improves decision making so much.
Give me the top 5 key indicators in your opinion.
Set, show, close for the front desk, number of cancels, and monthly attendance.
God damn, everyone. He didn't even say anything about money. That's crazy. That's crazy, because he knows that if those other 5 things are in place, the money will go up, right? You didn't say revenue, right? You didn't say total students, right? How many students do you have? You didn't say any of that. You didn't say price per member. You didn't say any of that, because you just know that if those 5 things work, and I didn't know what you were going to say. If those are in, everything else goes up, right?
Yeah.
You set your price right? But that's not a thing to track. Like, set your price right. If you're not charging $100, if you're charging a good rate, okay, everyone needs to be near 200. Everybody needs to be near $200 a month. If that's the case, and you do those 5 things, and that's what you're focused on, you'll do all right. So that's it, guys. Thanks for coming. I think we're all on the gram. So tell everyone. I think we're pretty responsive on the gram when people hit us up. So I'll plug this in a second. Tell everyone where they can reach you. Go ahead, Derek.
Derek Alumbaugh 16 is my Instagram handle. That's difficult to spell, but you can find it on the Easton Online website.
Search at Derek Alumbaugh and make sure they got some Easton friends.
Perfect.
Kyle, where are you?
You can find me. I'm super active on the Easton Online official page, or if you want to reach out to me directly, #1, Kyle Wright on Instagram.
Guys, I am at Fire Marshal 205. I hope to still be Fire Marshal 205. I got hacked. I can't even say I got hacked last 2 days ago. I had the guy that I work with for months steal my fucking Instagram. We're kind of buddies now, though. It's been kind of fun. I ended last night with like, yo, dog, why are you still in this with me right now? Like, you're like, what are you still doing here? I actually, I was like, go. Yeah, I was like, how old are you? And he was like, I'm 28. I was like, man, go find a girl to hang out with, dog. Like, why are you? I'm 44 years old, married with kids. Come on, man. So anyway, I hope to still be at Fire Marshal 205. We are at Easton.online. We got a couple things going on. Obviously, we have our launch program. If you have under 100 members, we will help you get to 100 members as soon as possible. So inside 3 months, you just go to the website, click on any link we have. Click on any link you could click on that website, and it'll ask you if you're over or under 100 members. Click the under 100. We'll get to you. And then secondly, we have our Academy Accelerator program, which is where we help academies with over 100 members with their systems, with I think everything, right? Curriculum, there's nothing we don't help them with. And
Top
if you're
up.
not ready yet, just go on my Instagram and join the Academy Growth Hub. We have a channel, right? A broadcast channel where, 3 to 4, sometimes 5 times a week, we just put information out. We put polls out to see where people are struggling. I ask questions, right? Just go on there and just follow it. Just see, just get a feel for us. And all of that is totally okay. So we love what we're doing. It's really fun for us. Derek's super busy. He had a meeting with our CEO, Mike, a one-on-one with Mike. And Mike said to him, it looks like the only thing you could kind of give up is Easton Online, Derek. You might have to do that. And what was your response, Derek?
No, I like it too much.
I like it too much. So we really like what we're doing. So we would love to work with you. Big, small, somewhere in the middle. Doesn't really matter to us. So that's it, guys. Have a great day, everyone.